Hey, I'm Nick. I'm talking to you through the iPhone 11 Pro Max right now. I'm a video producer for CNET, but I skateboard in my spare time and always usually film skating on my iPhone. My first iPhone was the iPhone 4. Oh. That was a bad one. And then I got an iPhone 6. That was a vast improvement. Now I have the iPhone 10. But usually I'm used to taking this thing out with a plastic C mount and what seems like an ocean of add-on wide-angle lenses. But I'm excited to only take out the iPhone 11 Pro Max with the built-in wide-angle lens, no add-ons, no C mount, and just see how it looks, baby. Just gotta grab you. I'm already sweaty and out of breath from skating to the Williamsburg Bridge. It's an important thing to consider that there's a lot of great third-party apps for shooting and editing, but we wanted to do this all raw in the camera, no accessories, no color grading, and probably importantly, as you can hear right now, no external audio. So this is exactly what it sounds like on a bridge with hella traffic and trains and boats and winds. That's how it goes. All right, back in Brooklyn, pretty beat. Y'all didn't see it, but I fell a few times. Derek got everything first try. Go home, probably shower, gather some thoughts, and then maybe get back out here when the sun goes down a bit and just see what Brooklyn's got to offer in the golden hour. Got the cruiser board now. All right, I'm back. New hat, new shirt, new board with soft wheels, even smoother. Oh, sorry. Well, that might be a good one to go check out back in the lab. All right, welcome to my fake little studio with Steve Nash. and this sweet Wayne's World marquee in the background. As you'll see, I have the iPhone 11 Pro Max in my hand right now. You're no longer looking at me through it. And I know earlier in the video I said we were going to try and edit this thing on the phone, which we did try in iMovie. And iMovie's great if you just want to mash together a few clips for your Instagram or whatever. But whenever you're sorting through clips and kind of have a more robust project at hand, it's really going to turn into a nightmare really fast. And speaking of nightmares, my biggest complaint with the whole process was getting this many 4K clips from the iPhone onto my computer, uncompressed. I could talk for centuries about this, maybe that's for another day, but just know that it's very annoying. Okay, so now that I got my biggest complaint out of the way, I'll jump into what I like the most about this camera, and it's the video stabilization, which was pretty insane. Now I know a skateboard adds a lot of really nice looking movement to your shots regardless, but even stuff like this one, which is one of my favorite shots that I shot of walking down into the subway, and you can see it just like floats down there. And I'm walking downstairs carrying my skateboard, not trying super hard to keep it steady, and it looks pretty amazing. Also in that same shot, it does a really good job by balancing the exposure from the outside on the street, going down into the dark subway station, and it looks pretty good in my opinion. Another way to show you the stabilization, I'm gonna compare this phone with my personal iPhone 10. Now I know that's kind of a silly comparison because this is way older than this one, but let's be honest, no one updates their phone every year. So I'm gonna show you a realistic comparison. Phones 2 years apart. This one is walking down the stairs of my apartment, and you can see my iPhone 10 does a pretty good job, although the image is definitely noisier and my steps are way more obvious when I'm going down the stairs. And then to keep going on that kind of skateboard as a dolly effect, I actually rolled them at the same time, skating across the Williamsburg Bridge. And you notice a few differences in the footage. Definitely the one on the left, which is the 11 Pro Max, is a lot smoother. It's also a lot less contrasty. But when I'm moving and holding both phones as steady as I can, they're both actually pretty good. But you can see that the 11 Pro Max does look just a little bit better, a little bit smoother. My next favorite thing is the ultra wide angle lens on this thing, especially for skating. I couldn't believe what this thing was doing. I was able to get super close to Derek here and get everything in the frame and get close to him and kind of get that traditional skate filming look, which I've only been able to accomplish that with my old phones with a ton of add-on wide angle lenses and mounts and that kind of stuff. So it's really cool to just have that in camera. And also, aside from skating, just going down the street, being really close to a building or a piece of graffiti or something, and being able to just tap the ultra wide button and all of a sudden you're getting the entire building and the clouds and the sky in the same frame is pretty cool. If you were to do that with a professional camera, you'd have to bring a bunch of lenses, probably a backpack with all your accessories, and take a bunch of time switching out lenses to get that effect. And instead, walking around with just this in your hand and at the tap of a button, all of a sudden you're at an ultra wide lens, something I really appreciated and would use all the time. Another cool thing about the lenses is in the software, each lens is just a single button press away from each other. So you can switch from, say, the telephoto to the ultra wide in just one tap of a button, and you create this kind of practical effect in camera to really mess with your focal length. And it's something my friend Marta, behind the camera, my coworker, recording this right now, she kind of mastered, and she also made a little movie about it. So take it away. Hell yeah. Another image quality thing that I think this phone does a really good job at is balancing the highlights and the shadows in harsh lighting conditions. I could be pointing the phone right at the sun and you're still seeing the details of the shadows, and the sky is not so overexposed where you don't get to see the pretty clouds or the blue sky. It kind of meets in the middle somewhere, and without doing any color correction, I was constantly pretty surprised at how good this looked. Another thing to talk about is slow motion. Now this phone does do 4K 60 frames per second. And for me personally, I usually output videos at 24 frames a second or 30 frames a second. So shooting at 60 usually is just fine for me, but if you want to go super slow-mo, 120 or 240, you can only shoot at 1080p, so I didn't do that much for this video. And speaking of nitty-gritty camera settings, I hate that you have to dig through 1,000 menus to change something like the resolution or the frame rate. There should just be a little button in the camera app that allows you to switch between 4K and 1080p and frame rate, what have you. Also, if they're gonna call this thing the Pro, why not have a little button with some more professional camera controls like iris or ISO, instead of just only being able to tap and hold and then you have no idea what the hell is going to happen at the other end of your finger. I know there's third-party apps like Filmic and stuff like that, but seems like something that could just be in the regular camera app, and we would all appreciate it. Got carried away with the kiss. All right, now that we're over that, one thing I do want to talk about is battery life, which I thought was pretty freaking awesome on this thing. The battery basically lasted all day and then some. I was impressed. So speaking of the battery lasting all day and shooting all day, that means that the sun eventually did go down. And almost instantly, as we started losing the sun, the picture quality started taking a nosedive. Now, if there's a big ambient source of light, like a baseball field or like a floodlight, then it does okay because it uses that light and then it doesn't bring up the noise for the rest of the image too much. But whenever you're in a situation without a big ambient light, it starts to look really muddy and gross. Here's this crazy motorcycle guy. I don't know what he was doing. He was just showing off for me. He did this for like an eternity. Just did 1,000,000 laps. I don't know what he was doing. I was pretty excited about it because you don't see that every day. But then I got back to the lab and in my opinion, it doesn't look that great. It looks like a cell phone video. There's also this church over here, which is a very pretty church. And this image just looks bad. But despite that, I thought night mode on the still camera is great. Maybe in the future we're gonna see night mode on the video camera and that will be a great day. And while I'm in complaining mode, the last thing I promise. These 3 little cameras, when you have this phone in your pocket all the time, are gonna get incredibly dirty and you're gonna get so much lint and other weird junk stuck between the crevices. You're gonna spend all your time just like digging a little Kleenex to make sure that's clean all the time. And it's just a little absurd. So I did really enjoy using this thing. I loved the video stabilization. I love the ultra wide angle lens, especially for filming skating. And I think as an everyday phone camera, no one's gonna have a lot to complain about with what this thing can do. That being said, I think the Pro name is a little misleading. No one's gonna go out and get this phone and replace their fancy rig that they might have. But if you have it and you're in a pinch and you know what you're doing, you can probably come out with something that isn't fertilizer. Now check out these sunglasses that I got for $10. Whee!